Hello and welcome to another episode. So this week I figured I'd talk about my extensive 3DO collection. By extensive I mean maybe 30-ish games, give or take. But the 3DO, weird little system, released around about 30 years ago now, by Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of EA. Boo. That being said, 3DO was an interesting system for the time. If you're watching this, I presume you know about the 3DO. If you don't, brief history lesson. It was released in a very unique way. So the 3DO company set up by Trip Hawkins didn't have the cash, didn't have the capital to actually manufacture these things by themselves. So as a result, they licensed the tech out to a series of companies. These included, I want to say Sanyo, Gold Star, Panasonic, and there was another one, but the other one escapes me. And then the consoles were sold, well, by each of these companies, and each one was compatible with different, with pretty much all games across the board. There are a few. The 3DO is generally region free. There are at least 2 or 3 games, to my knowledge, that do not work on certain systems. So, for example, my 3DO is a NTSC J one, or it's from Japan. It's about 58 quid. Maybe coming up to 10 years now. I've had this thing for 10 years. Absolutely bonkers. But, yeah, I'm a big fan of the 3DO. I'm a huge fan of the 3DO. I went through a phase of wanting to own every 5th gen system. That included the Pippin, that included the Amiga CDI, that Philips CDI. Still got a Philips CDI. Never played it. I still rank it better than the Xbox One, but anyway. The 3DO of those kind of jank, cruddy consoles was kind of the only one I actually really took to. Obviously, I stuck with Saturn, I stuck with PlayStation 1, stuck with N64, as you do, but 3DO was kind of the one that really got my motor running. So I figured I'd talk about a few of the games. We'll get to my favourite ones towards the end, but yeah, I'll probably just start with a couple. Off-World Interceptor, that's the first one. I've played this maybe twice, and it's not great. It's kind of a linear sort of Space Harrier kind of deal, in that you're driving a big old monster truck armed with guns, chasing after other dudes in big old monster trucks with guns along a pretty linear sort of track, trying to, well, kill them and turn them into scrap metal. And it takes all 32 bits screaming to the red line. It's not a very good game. From what I'm given to understand, it was ported to the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn later on with some additional content. Kind of how Nintendo did with the Wii U. I should do a Wii U video, and I will. It's going to be good. Anyway, not a great start, but I kind of wanted it. I wanted to try it, see what it was like. That being said, better game, PO'd. You're a chef on a spaceship killing aliens that look like asses. It's not a game that would be made nowadays. It's not a shooter you'd make nowadays. But if I was going to pick a game that epitomised weird 90s schlock garbage, it would be PO'd. Not a bad shooter. Not my favourite one on the system. We'll get to that. There's a certain game that I am a very big fan of. So, next up, we've got a game that, quite frankly, I bought for about 12 quid out of a shop called Retro Game Base, which was on Streatham Common in London before it shut down, unfortunately. Which kind of sucks, because that place was awesome. It's the first time I saw a Vectrex in the wild. Then they also had an actual Pong machine, like a legit Pong machine. Freaking cool. But he had a huge collection of random tat, and only a few 3DO games, including Blade Force. I'll be honest with you, this isn't amazing, It's okay, but it's not one of my go-to games. It's just kind of slow with a whole 24 frames a second. 24 frames a second, and I can hear all of the frame bros screaming about how things should be 60 frames a second, or 120, or uncapped, or whatever. Certain games play better in certain frame rates. I think that Panzer Dragoon, for example, on the Saturn plays fine at 24 or 30 at max. Other games play better at 60. It kind of depends what they're built around. Blade Force is not one of those games. But yeah, it's not one I'd recommend. Following up, kind of two of the major reasons I got a 3DO. We got Wing Commander, or Super Wing Commander, more specifically. It's the first game. Sort of remade, sort of re-released. It's fine. The second one's got, or the third one, more accurately, much more interesting. You have Mark Hamill. You have Malcolm McDowell in it. Just a lot of stuff. And not only that, this thing is 4 discs. It's 4 freaking discs, and it's enormous. It's absolutely gargantuan, with a whole bunch of lore and a whole bunch of inserts, and just very cool. Will be also honest, haven't really got round to playing this. I also have, I think I have the 4th one. I've got most of the Wing Commander games. I don't have 2 yet, and I don't have 5, but I've got a fair number of the other ones. A series I'm really interested in. Less so for the movie. Less said about the movie, the better, let's be fair. But if you want to kind of look at a series that's really lost to time, Wing Commander is it. I wouldn't say the 3DO version is the best one, the best way to play the series, but it's certainly a good enough. It's good enough, to be fair. And it's got that video module thing. Mine doesn't. I don't know if you need it for this. I don't think you do. It doesn't say. But, yeah. Published by EA, who I believe now own the trademark. So that will never get a re-release. Thank you, EA. Bastard. An odd one. Battle Sport. It's basically just you want to know what it is? It's Rocket League. It's Rocket League. It's Rocket League about, God knows, 28 years ago. 28 years ago, we had Rocket League, and it wasn't very good. Though there is another kind of old school Rocket League sort of clone coming out called Driving Strike on the Dreamcast. I'd say play that. Sorry, Driving Strikers from Wave Games. Play that. Don't play Battle Sport. It's not very good. Okay, next up, Return Fire. I've played this a couple times. I really want the map pack one. Like the, for the life of me, its name escapes me, but it looks really fun. This game's really solid. Unfortunately, I've only got one controller for my 3D. I've never actually got around to getting another one, so I can daisy chain them. Because in most 3DO official controllers, they have a little cap on the top, and you plug in another controller into that, and you daisy chain them along for multiple people. Weird choice. I guess it's better than having cables stretching for... And they're big-ass cables. They stretch for, like, at least a good 6-7 feet. Mad. But not the best way to play multiplayer, especially if the first player gets annoyed. They can just unplug literally everyone else. Next up... okay, I'm going to preface this. Quite a number of my 3DO games are loose. They're in cases, they're in separate dual cases, they're in this, that, and the other. Strictly because the guy I used to buy them from, they didn't have a lot of the cases. For the ones that I really desperately wanted them for, I have them. But otherwise, I don't. And this is a good example. I own Family Feud on the 3DO. Don't know why. I've never seen the show. I don't really want to. I just picked this up because it was like £3. Don't know too much about it. Never played it. Never will. On that Twisted one, though, there's a game called Twisted on the 3DO that's just basically a weird, well, game show, and it's insane, and apparently says fuck quite a lot, and now I'll get demonetized. Not that I'm monetized on these videos. Thank you, YouTube. Anyway, next up we've got VR Stalker. I think, from what I'm given to understand, this is either an FMV game or it's some kind of space sim. I've never played it. I probably never will, but it's in my collection. That's great. Moving on, Mega Race. Mega Race with its very, very, very bad, very bad FMV nonsense, because everything in the 90s was riddled with FMV. That was the future of video games, with garbage like Night Trap and Sewer Shark and Ground Control. Not Ground Control. No, it was Ground Control. No, Ground Zero. That was it. Bad. Terrible game. Don't play it. Anyway, this. It's fine. There are better racing games on the 3DO. Personally, I really want Crash and Burn. Strictly because it was the only 3DO game for like 4 months that people could play, and it really sung true on what happened with that console. It crashed and burned. You know, we'll get to that one in a moment. We'll get to a lot of these in a moment. Petanque, or Petanque, depending on what you want to call it. It's basically 3D pinball. Oh, Petanque. It's Petanque. But you're a tank in a pinball game. It's probably one of the weirder games on this system, and it's really what I miss about 5th gen. You got insane ideas. You got massively insane experimental ideas that nobody really does anymore because it's too frickin' expensive. So everything has to be big cinematic games, or just indie stuff that's all subsequent platforms. Anyway, that's kind of what I miss about 90s games, the sheer insanity. Speaking of, Monster Mansion. Probably one of the better shooters. Still not my favourite. We'll get to my favourite. But a solid one. I think it's okay. This goes for a lot now. But it's mine, so nobody's having it. That is a thing, that is a thing, and that's the other thing. Cool. Hellwave, a cyberpunk thriller. From what I'm given to understand, this is kind of a weird point and click. I kind of picked it up for like £5 or £8, or probably along that line. Solid game. From what I understand, I've never actually played it. That's kind of a running theme for a lot of these 3DO games. I haven't got round to playing them yet. Others I have played extensively. I've played quite a lot of these extensively. It's just certain ones slip through the cracks, unfortunately. Speaking of ones that have slipped through the cracks, Shockwave, and Shockwave. So you've got Shockwave 1. You've got the sort of, what did you say, expansion pack, Operation Jump Gate, and then you have Shockwave 2. All of these were released, except I think Jump Gate, actually. Jump Gate was never released separately. All of these released on other systems, kind of hover tank sorts of games. If you've played Hover Strike on the Atari Jaguar, kind of along that line. I can't really think of another game that's similar, but oops. Solid. We'll get to you. Right, okay. Phoenix 3. No idea. Just picked it up because it was a couple of quid at a retro game convention. It's only like £2. Admittedly, this was about 8 years ago, when things were affordable. Here's one. Limited Run have announced a Gex trilogy, and I've picked up the original. Kind of a weird tale with Gex. He was essentially the 3DO's mascot. Sega had Sonic, Nintendo had Mario, Sony had Crash and Spyro. They had a weird gecko with the glasses, who then didn't get another game on the 3DO ever because they discontinued it 3 years after launching the fucking thing. So, great. Oh well. Not a bad game. Pretty solid. It's not a bad side-scrolling platformer, but it kind of wears a bit thin. It's kind of like Bug on the Saturn. That wears pretty thin pretty quickly. Gex is in much the same... It's in much the same company. Now, a game that you really cannot play on the 3DO unless you've got a very specific 6-button controller. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. A friend of mine had this just lying around his house, and he asked me if I wanted to buy it off him, so yeah, sure. It's great. I own Street Fighter 2. Unfortunately not the controller you kind of need to play the frickin' thing, but here we are. Bit of a pity. Ah, yes. Probably one of the best games on the system. Road Rash. This was a big grab for me. I needed to get this. This was the thing to own on the 3DO. Most, I know it's been ported to that and a million other frickin' systems, but Road Rash, everyone says the 3DO one's the best one, and they are bloody correct. The guy I got this from, a bunch of these games from, actually threw in the sampler CD for the Panasonic, which is very cool, and for free. So thank you to him, nice guy, big fan, very nice. Haven't used it too much. Panzer General. So this is a series of games that I've recently come into contact with. Published by Mindscape and created by SSI, which I think is Strategic Somethings Interactive. I've got a couple of these. I've got this one, I've got Allied General on the PlayStation 1, and I have Star General on PC in a big old box. I am currently lacking Fantasy General. It's kind of turn-based strategy, kind of big grid scale games. If you've played Shattered Union on the original Xbox, it's basically the same thing. Lot of fun. Hell of a lot of fun. Big fan of that game. Huge fan. Probably my most recent pickup. Okay, I guess we're in the final lot now. Total Eclipse of the Heart. No. A fine game. Kind of a space flight sort of game, similar to Guardian on the Amiga CDI. CD32. Crying out loud. Similar to that, similar to kind of a 3D open map Star Fox. Looks a bit better than original Star Fox, but I will do my Star Fox video and I will talk about it. I just need to play it more. But no, Total Eclipse is fine. Has the Horde being shown on the back. I actually had the Horde on the Saturn a good number of years ago and I just beat the whole thing using cheats because it's not very good. That game, though, actually quite good. Crystal Dynamics. Current developers of the Tomb Raider series, which is nice. I did a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, I think they made Gex, if I remember correctly. They did. They did make Gex. Wonder if they're handling the re-release. Okay. Kind of a classic of the 90s. Syndicate. Picked this up in a shop in Swindon called Retro Game World, I think. Bloody good shop. Bloody good shop. Definitely need to go there again. I think once I flog a couple of the more expensive items, I'll go there and blow a couple of £100 again like I normally do. To be fair, I've only done that twice. But, yeah. A solid, really solid strategy game. Again, not the best way to play it. I'd say that would be either a re-release like the one on the PS1, or, if, to be fair, GOG. Get it on GOG. It's easier to control, it's better to play, and just, yeah. But it's got CD quality, so who am I to complain? Okay, before I get into the last four, there are a couple that I do want to mention that I do want to get my grubby little mitts on. The first is Icebreaker, which they all begin with I. Icebreaker, which is a really interesting looking game that just really is odd. It was developed years after the 3DO was discontinued. The guy even made a sequel somewhere online. Icebreaker is available. I will probably get around to getting it eventually, but we'll see. Next is Immersionary. That's kind of the big one. That's the big one. That's the big, you know, have to earn it, need it, blah blah blah. The other one, I'll get to in a minute, but Immersionary, just if you played it, let me know, because I want to know how it is. The other one is Iron Angel of the Apocalypse 2. Which is a weird one. Much like its predecessor, Iron Angel of the Apocalypse. I'll be honest with you, it's very, very, very weird. It's very weird. It's kind of a action role-playing movie ARPG. Or ARPM, whatever. I think that's action role-playing movie. Yeah, action role-playing movie. A strange experience. It's genuinely like watching, what was it called? Metropolis from the 50s, or from the 40s and 50s. It's like watching that movie whilst making a load of crack, and then putting it into a video game and just kind of going, yeah, this exists. From what I'm given to understand, the sequel is nowhere near as good as Requiem is. In fact, Requiem might be the sequel. I just genuinely... Oh no, Requiem is the sequel. This is just the first game. Requiem's a sequel. Haven't got it yet. Will do. But yeah. Then I did promise my favourite shooter on the 3DO, Killing Time. Killing Time is freaking amazing. It's basically what would happen if you took Cluedo, combined it with Spawn, in a way, just based off of the artwork, and threw in a healthy dash of Doom and Hexen, and you've got a really freaking solid game with a really good story, considering the age of this. I mean, when did this game come out? Does not say, but apparently supports the flight stick. You know what? I may have to track down the flight stick so that I can play Killing Time. I think that'll be great. Okay, we're down to my final two games. Two of my favourites, actually. And a series, especially one of them, which continued a series that pretty much most people who play racing games know, and that is the Need for Speed. It did originate on the 3DO. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty impressed with this game's destruction physics and just physics in general. It looks great. Like, it has aged remarkably, considering you can go out on a limb and say it looks better than a lot of the 3D stuff on the Saturn. So it just kind of shows that the 3DO could do pretty solid 3D. It's just not a lot of games ended up taking advantage of that, unfortunately. They were all kind of Doom clones or Wolfenstein clones. Can get Wolfenstein on here. I will. That's on my list. But, yeah. Now we get to my final game, and pretty much the major reason I own this system. Star Control 2. Also published by Crystal Dynamics. They had a big hand in this thing. Big hand in the 3DO, and this is probably my absolute favourite game on the system. It's also a game I'm extraordinarily bad at. But it's a series I've got much love for. I may do a Star Control collection. Admittedly, that's 3 games, and me talking about it on the U, yeah. But, and yes, I do have New Year, and yes, I do have Star Control 2 on it. Witty dialogue, excellent gameplay, one of the best stories in games of the era. It inspired one of my favourite series of all time. It inspired Mass Effect. I mean, how could I not love Star Control 2? I'm just extraordinarily bad at the combat. So as a result, I die all the time. So I've never actually managed to beat the bloody thing. Definitely a game I'm going to sit down and finish. one of these days I'm going to plug that 3DO in and I'm not going to stop until I have finished. Anyway, that's it for the 3DO, guys. Let me know what your favourite games on the series is, or on the system is, and yeah, and let me know if there's any that you're currently hunting for. Okay, thank you guys, and with that, I am signing out.